Hello, I'm Caroline and I'm making a video today about efectos, which are the kind of special effects that we have in tango music. I'll be doing it with my violin. These effects can be done on many different kinds of instruments. Obviously sometimes the techniques may vary, but anything I'm doing today works mostly on the strings. So in tango music we never had percussion instruments in the history of tango. There have been a few projects now and again that have used them, but that's not the tradition. As a result, all the acoustic instruments have a role to play as far as percussion goes. Today I've got a list of 12 effects that you can learn on your violin or your viola or your cello. So the first one is one that's used a lot. It's probably one of the most common ones that you have. It's called chicharra, and you play this on the D string on the violin. It doesn't work so well on the viola and the cello, but I have had friends who've experimented with different hand positions and things like that, and they've discovered a way of reproducing this kind of sound. So it's on the coloured cotton part of the D string. You need a lot of rosin down here on the bottom of your bow, right at the heel. I change my hand shape a bit so I can get more pressure on there, and then I play. So it's the kind of sound that if you're in a group with several string players, it's better if only one of you does it, and it kind of cuts through a lot of the sound of the group in general. So it can be quite a powerful way of getting some percussion going on. You can do tons of different rhythms. It's very common to have some fast notes and then a slow one, something like that, but you can also have... There's lots and lots of variations on that, so I suggest next time you listen to some Pearsall, see if you can hear some of that in some of the songs. So the next effect is one that represents a drum-like sound. It's called tambor. Sounds like this. So again, that's quite good at cutting through, and you can hear it really well, especially if you're amplified. It sounds really big then. Again, it's best to have just one violin really doing this at a time. And I put my second finger in third position. So normally where I would have my first finger in third position on the D string, I have now put my second finger and I slant it towards the G, and with part of my nail and part of the flesh I touch the G, and then I pluck the G very hard, but my finger still remains on the D. Some people get this immediately, and for other people it takes a bit of practice, but the idea is you want something very dry with no harmonics. You can also use other fingers. You can get a bit more of a da-da-da type sound. So another one that we have is called latigo, which means whip. There's a couple of Pearsall pieces, one called Michelangelo 70, which starts with it. So you usually start, it's often on the E string, you start down low and you go in slowly, and as you go higher you get faster and faster with both your bow and your fingers. So you want that kind of towards the end. You can do it on every string, obviously, but it's very effective on the E. You also have another version which goes down. Again, that's like in a quite dramatic moment. There's a lot of that in Pearsall as well. And an old-fashioned one, which I consider to be part of the latigo family, is one that you hear in the older orchestras. Don't hear it so much now anymore, where they go up and down again, and that's a lot of fun, that one. So another sound we have as well is called golpe de caja. Golpe means hit and caja means the body of the instrument, or box. So on a violin, for example, I do it with my thumb. You can do it with your fingers. You can also do something along those lines as well. You can also, with the cello, for example, and the double bass, they'll tend to hit it in the back here, and for them they'll get a nice booming sound, but we don't get that on the violin. Also double bass players sometimes hit in there as well, and on the front they can actually play the double bass like a drum instrument. I'll see if I can get a friend to show me that for a video later on in the series. You can also use your rings. Bandoneon players use rings as well on their instrument to get a nice hitting sound too, so it's kind of up to you to experiment a bit to find ones that you like. Another sound we have is called sirena, and this is a siren. So it's something that's used more in the Pearsall slow pieces as a kind of gloomy, effective ending. It's quite dramatic really when you have the context of the piece beforehand. You can't use it that much in a piece. I mean, you really wouldn't. You'd maybe use it once, twice at the most in a whole piece, because otherwise the effect is lost. So you can have a version just going down. So it's dying away and dying out. And you have other ones that go up before they go down. You get the idea. If you try playing that at the end of a piece like Oblivion or Soledad or something like that, it works really, really nicely. Yeah, another effect which I learned from Ramiro Gallo, a famous tango violinist living and working in Buenos Aires, is called cepillo, which means brush. And you're going to bring the bow towards you vertically. Instead of doing it horizontally like that, you're going to bring it right back towards you. And you hear that crunching sound? So I'm pressing down whilst I'm doing that. And you see I can just have a chord, for example. It's quite a moody way of starting. You can often start a rhythmic section, or there are some pieces that you can start that way. You won't use it every time, obviously, because then it gets boring, and the idea always is variation. The next technique is called Tabata, but it's not designed for the violin, so it doesn't work very well on the violin. I'm going to show you anyway, but it's more for cellists and double bass players, and some viola players manage to get it to work as well. The principle is that you're going to do a collegno hit here, and just at the end of it you're going to slap your hand down hard on the fingerboard, trapping all the strings underneath and making a hit. Obviously it works really well on cello and bass because they just slap down that in that way and gravity helps them. On a violin it sounds, doesn't really work. But if you can imagine that on a cello, it really works nicely. So cellists and bass players, I suggest you have a go. Another effect which is a lot of fun in pizzicato passages is called the banjo pizz. And it's a great way of bringing out an accent and making the whole section rhythmically more alive, because pizzicatos can sometimes get a bit lost in the general sound of an orchestra. But if you do this, it's definitely going to stand out. So you play two strings at once. I always do it on two strings. You can technically do it on one, but I find it much more powerful if you do it on two. So, for example, if I was playing a pizzicato passage offbeat, for example, El Amanecer, I could do like this. And it really helps bring out that accent. We'll be looking more at that kind of thing in some of the pieces we'll be doing later on in the rest of the series. Another pizzicato technique is one that gets used a lot in milongas, which is the dun 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 dun. It's that kind of rhythm, so it's not the same as tango. Tango has tango, milonga and waltz. So the milonga is always happier, a lot faster, you have to be a lot lighter on your feet, and the dance steps are different too. So in this one we have a percussive effect where we play behind the bridge. So that's really nice to add that when you're doing a milonga, and say you've got, I don't know, 10 bars rest or something, you add a bit of that in and it helps the swing of the piece. I've now got another one which I personally love, but a lot of people always grimace the first time they see this or hear this, especially classical musicians. So I'm just going to kind of show you away a bit from the camera. So have a listen. Sounds like something's breaking, right? Wrong! Nothing broke. Basically, you've got to make sure you've still got some good rosin on your bow. You're going to press it down on the back, and you press the wood on the hair and you just move it from side to side. It's really effective. Works very well on double bass as well. So it's fun to add that in now and again when there's a quieter moment, or where you have a moment where it's getting, I don't know, it's a bit mysterious or a bit strange or aggressive, and people always react to that one. Another technique, which is more of a rhythmic technique really, but because you need to have a bit of an effect with the bow, I'm going to put it under the effects as well, is the arrastre. Arrastre means drag, and it often works, well, it always works as an upbeat to something. It's usually signalling that the melody's coming back, or that we're going to a new section, something like this. So it's something you hear a lot on the piano, and on the piano it sounds like this. for example. Lots of pieces, lots of tangos begin like that, so have a listen next time you're listening to a tango. Now on string instruments we don't tend to play all the notes, we tend to do, so we do a kind of long drag, literally, until we get to the first beat. And if, say I'm playing a chord of, A and F sharp on my violin, then I will start with the fingers as much lower beneath those notes. So I'm going to slide those fingers up until they get to the chord, and whilst I'm doing that, my bow is slow, and when I arrive at the accent, I give it a kind of whip-like gesture. So rhythmically it's really strong, and if you have a string section of musicians who can do that together, it just sounds fabulous. With the bandoneons as well, it becomes a really powerful rhythmic sound. The last effect is one that I don't know what the name's supposed to be. I call it Brazilian squeak because it reminds me of the little squeaky drum that you can play in Brazilian music. Again, this is a lot of fun to add in a moment where you're not playing anything much and you feel that there's a bit of space to add some creative percussion. So basically you're just going to slide your fingers along the back of your violin and you make a squeak. Your fingers, if they're completely dry, you won't get much sound, but you don't need them to be humid or anything like that. And you just press and you get little squeaking sounds. So that's kind of quite fun if one violin's doing cicciata and another one's doing some pizzicato, and then you're doing that at the end, so you can create these little ostinato cycles of percussion together. So that's everything for today. We'll be sending another video out soon, talking more about where exactly you can use all these efectos in pieces. So we'll have pieces that we'll be dealing with, and I'll show you where to put this kind of stuff. Alright, have fun learning how to do these techniques. Bye!